Power erodes in many forms, but few unravel as grotesquely as the end of King Philip II of Spain. For a ruler who once held dominion over half the known world, his final adversary was neither a rival sovereign nor a rebellious province, but something far more intimate and insidious, the collapse of his own body. As we walk the shadowed halls of El Escorial in the heat-choked summer of 1598, prepare for a descent into a story where absolute power confronts utter helplessness, where the lion becomes carrion, and where the very flesh of a king stages its quiet revolt. Philip II reigned as the most formidable monarch of his era, sovereign of the first empire upon which the sun never set, stretching from the Andes to the Pacific Islands that still bear his name. The son of Charles V, Philip's empire blanketed the globe, allowing him to proclaim proudly that daylight never faded from his lands. A staunch defender of Catholicism during the Counter-Reformation, he was both venerated and feared, launching the Armada at England and funding endless campaigns against Protestants. Yet, Philip's last war wouldn't unfold on distant battlefields, but in a bedchamber turned charnel house. For 52 days during Spain's searing summer, the man who once dictated the fates of millions was immobilized, rotting alive as microscopic parasites made a feast of him. This is more than a tale of bodily decay. It's an unflinching meditation on mortality, on the collapse of majesty, on the raw equality of death. The palace Philip built as his seat of power and eternal tomb did become just that, but not before serving as the grotesque stage of his final undoing. Within those walls, a sovereign used to commanding the tides of empires found himself besieged by microbes and maggots, defenseless as the lowliest creature. Eyewitness accounts of his demise are so harrowing, some doubted their accuracy. But modern science suggests they were all too real. What follows is no rumor. This is the unfiltered end of Philip II, a demise so obscene, so drawn out, and so degrading that it endures as one of history's grimmest reminders that no crown is immune from the crawl of worms. As we pull back the velvet sheets to reveal what remains beneath, we remember kings return to dust too. Sometimes they decompose while still breathing, still aware, still prey. Signs of Philip's decline surfaced in the spring of 1598. At 71, already old by contemporary standards, he had battled ailments for decades. Gout had afflicted him since his 30s, curling his hands and feet into gnarled claws. The pain made walking and riding a torment. The attacks worsened with time, spreading to wrists, knees, and shoulders. He also suffered from severe arthritis that left him unable to move without assistance. Court witnesses claimed he couldn't even scratch an itch. Alongside this came fevers, persistent and sapping. By 1591, the once tireless king had been confined to a wheelchair, yet he remained obsessive in duty, reviewing each crucial document himself, often scrawling no in the margins, his word shaping the destinies of millions. But in June 1598, something shifted. His fever returned with a vengeance, and ominous pustules erupted on his right knee and hand. They burst, drained, refilled, again and again. His doctors, shackled by primitive understanding, turned to cupping and bloodletting, but the infection only deepened. Within weeks, Philip lay bedridden, paralyzed save for his head and left arm. The emperor of Christendom was now a husk, dependent on attendance for everything. The rigid decorum of the Spanish court broke down under the weight of his biological ruin. A man once addressed only through genuflection now lay soaked in excrement, awaiting anyone to clean him. By July, as the heat grew stifling, so did Philip's condition. New lesions bloomed across his groin, chest, and legs. The stench became unbearable. Courtiers passing his chamber gagged behind perfumed cloths. Philip, still mentally sharp, insisted the windows remain shut, not for himself, but to spare others the stench. Observers described pustules oozing blood and pus, scabbing over, then bursting anew, but this rot was only the beginning. Unable to shift without agony, Philip's sweat-soaked linens became a breeding ground. Lice appeared in early August. Whether they were brought by a servant or arose from the filth, they flourished. The king's body, unable to resist, became their haven. They fed, multiplied, and overran him. Some chroniclers claimed lice crawled from his wounds, birthed inside him. If not biologically true, it may as well have been. Philip had become an ecosystem for vermin. Servants picked lice by the handful, only to return hours later to a fresh swarm. But lice were the surface-level terror. The real horror burrowed deeper. The royal physician, Zamudio de Alfaro, noted that from the king's open wounds, maggots emerged, flies having laid their eggs in his decaying flesh. Each morning, more worms were plucked from his body. Imagine it. A man once believed to heal the sick with his touch, now crawling with life that devoured him from within. Still conscious, Philip leaned into faith. "Lord, these torments are great," he reportedly said, "but smaller than my sins." And then, worse still, bedsores. Pressure ulcers bloomed across his back and hip. One on his right hip, court records state, tore so deeply it exposed bone. One monk claimed the wound was the size of a clenched fist. Every day, attendants extracted pus, tissue, and insects enough to fill silver basins. This gaping lesion became the maggot's home base. Some accounts claim they tunneled deeper when disturbed, eating the king alive. Flies no longer settled for wounds alone. They laid eggs in his nostrils, ears, and mouth. Philip could do nothing. Gout had made even a finger's brush unbearable. Changing his position or bed brought screams that echoed through the palace. The same king who had sentenced thousands to burn now whimpered, begging his servants for mercy. Through it all, his mind stayed intact. This might have been the cruelest fate of all. Philip was acutely aware of what he had become, rot encased in royal robes. Still, he prayed. Still, he heard Mass daily. Still, he counseled his heir, Philip III, who would soon inherit a kingdom his father could no longer rule or escape. By September, new torments surfaced, chronic diarrhea added to the squalor. His kidneys began to fail, and fluid bloated his limbs and gut. His skin stretched, split, and offered more doorways for infection. Doctors recorded sepsis, high fever, and confusion. But in moments of clarity, Philip clutched a crucifix, his father's, and found solace in its memory. His physicians tried to rebalance his humors with cruel remedies. Arsenic, mercury, and other caustic substances were applied directly to his wounds, worsening the necrosis. Bloodletting, performed sometimes daily, drained what little life remained. His meals were sparse: broths, bread, watered wine when he could stomach them. Starvation joined infection, infestation, blood loss, and dehydration in the assault. His heart faltered. He gasped for breath. The weather offered no relief. The Escurial's thick stone walls trapped summer's heat. The windows remained mostly shut. Inside, the air curdled with the smell of rotting meat and sweat. Insects bred faster. By mid-September, death crept close. Philip summoned his children. He blessed them. Philip III, shielded from his father's suffering until now, wept at the sight and smell of the man who had once ruled half the world. The elder king, broken but lucid, tried to pass on wisdom. "I have been treated like a dog," he whispered. "Remember this when you wear the crown?" Whether it was a warning or a lament is unclear. On September 13th, Philip received the final rites. His confessor anointed what skin he could touch without making the king scream. Even then, flies gathered, drawn to the scented oil. Holy sacraments collided with decomposition. Philip's breathing grew ragged. His chest rattled. At 5 o'clock a.m., clutching his father's crucifix, Philip II exhaled his last breath.